Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Government Secrets episode 93. With the two most censored comedians in America, Lee Camp and Grab Elwood.
What's
Hey,
up, bud?
buddy.
How's it going?
What's up, man? Two things. First of all, is when you said if you ordered something from Patreon, I'm so used to every time you mention one of these platforms being like, if you're watching on YouTube, they can go fuck themselves in the eye holes, or if you used to watch me on PayPal, then they have recently said that I'm banned forever. That I totally thought the end of that sentence was going to be, if you ordered a mug or a sticker, they just informed me you're not getting it, except for a few select people who they took a dump in the mug and they sent it to you.
Yes, they just sent me an email saying they've smashed the mugs into pieces, and they're gonna look with a little.
I'm so used to you and me just being obliterated by all these platforms that I never expected a sentence to end well.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, I'm sure you were like, oh no, what now? What happened now? Like literally, I just read an email right before the show started saying, oh, you guys have been demonetized.
They actually sent me a piece of the mug in the mail and said, if you want the rest of this, shut down your show.
It's like, yeah, we just got an email saying, we're going to arrest you guys and make you the swap for Brittany Griner. So I hope I don't know if you know this, the WNBA star who just got sentenced to 9 years for having cannabis oil in her bag in Russia, which
there's a few things about this. Is it fucked up? Absolutely. Is the Russian government fucked up for doing this? Absolutely. Is the U.S. government fucked up for doing this to 100,000 black people every year?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, it just shows you again in a microcosm of how messed up this whole situation is, right? So we're like, again, America has the audacity to be like, they're just locking her up for CBD oil. Well,
for
yes, our prisons are filled with people who committed the horrific crime of smoking a plant. So, it's, and obviously this is what happens. You know, I don't like what Russia's doing at all, but we provoke them into a situation. She's been playing. So I'm a fan of the WNBA, and almost everyone in the WNBA, because the WNBA pays okay, but they just got a new collective bargaining agreement 2 years ago. So they have a better deal, but they don't pay great. So all these women have to go play in Europe to make real money.
Right.
And they play in Turkey, they play all over the place. And Russia has a very good and financially successful women's basketball league. So much so that one woman, Diana Taurasi, one year was paid $1 million to not play in the WNBA, to sit out because they play, the WNBA plays in the summer and Europe plays like the rest of the world. They play basketball in the fall and the winter and the spring. So they paid her. This Russian owner was like, I want you well rested because I want to win a championship. So I'm going to pay you $1 million to not play in the WNBA. So my point is, I bet you Brittany Griner has been bringing CBD oil in and out of Russia for years. And they just went, here we go. We're going to make this a big deal to get some guys back.
Of course, because it's fucking stupid. And here's another hot take. This is toxic nationalism garbage. This is countries saying, we're going to get you by fucking going after this innocent person over here. Look at how we got you. And the U.S. does it to Russia all the time. We've arrested all kinds of people. I don't remember her name, that girl that we arrested a couple of years ago. And because we claim she was, exchanging sex for political manipulation or whatever. And it was all garbage. It was all bullshit. But we just, this is what we do, because nation states are idiotic.
But I mean, exchanging sex for, Lee, come on. We've done this show. We've never done a story where the CIA has done anything like that. It's not like we've done segments where the CIA has had literally like sex rooms, porn movies, like prostitutes. Like, it's so funny when we get outraged about something somebody else is doing. It's usually we've done it worse. Like every time we've done it worse. So,
but then more importantly, the second thing I was going to say is that when I went to before we got off on the Russia prisoner thing, when I went to retweet today's show and I went to your Twitter account, it balloons shot across my screen because it says that it's your birthday. Now, I hate when I'm forced to feel like a child by these stupid fucking websites and apps. And when they're just like, you're 3 years old, blah. So if it had just said this is Graham's birthday, I'd be like, happy birthday, man. That's great. But because of these balloons, I had to set fire to my laptop. And I had to borrow this from someone.
So that's how you're celebrating my birthday, is setting fire to your laptop. This is what I think my buddy, this is how we celebrate Graham's life, is we're going to set our laptops on fire. I always love the, and I've gotten a bunch of birthday messages already, which is really cool. But I love the just, we here at T-Mobile want to wish you a special birthday with it. Just like, okay, just
dude, I only got like 3 messages outside my family. I mean, I don't mean on Facebook. I'm sure some people said something on Facebook, but like 3 messages out. Also, I put a fake birthday for most of the sites, so they're not real anyway. But I got like 3 messages outside my family. I like 3 messages outside my family for my birthday. So it's not like I had loads of emails. And then it was like, Integrated Dermatology wants to wish you a happy birthday. And I was like, what good guys over there at Integrated Dermatology. What friendly folks. They care so much.
Nobody throws a birthday party like Integrated Dermatology, man. No, it is off the chain what happens over there. It's just bananas, man.
Meanwhile, they've got their fingers crossed for you to get melanoma. They act like they want you to have a happy birthday. They want you to have a cancerous birthday is what they want.
Yeah, it's just like, why don't you celebrate your birthday with 10% off a cancer screening? Because as we get older, you probably got it. Like just a fear-based, just buy one, get one free.
They're not wishing anything good for you. They're hoping you have one of those vestigial twins you find growing off your back. And, they've got to really do an expensive operation there. That's what they're rooting for.
Okay, we're at another time in the show where Lee's just dropping vestigial twin. What is that, Lee? What's a vestigial twin?
Oh, come on, Graham. You know everything about the WNBA, but you never heard of it's like a twin where it's it's just like the teeth and the skull is like lodged in your neck or something. You've never heard of this shit?
No, Lee. I watched women's basketball, not horror movies. I don't watch the Saw films or whatever you're watching.
Oh, God. And don't Google it. It's
See, I don't want to know what this thing is. I mean, I'm glad they call it vestigial twin because that just sounds like a punk band. But
actually, that's the polite term. This is a form of parasitic twinning. Oh, usually the thing's not alive. Usually it's like leftover teeth of like a twin you had, and it's in your neck. Or like in your back or something.
What?
Okay, maybe you should Google it because now you think I'm making it up.
It sounds like literally it's like one of the Alien movie, like Alien 5, vestigial twin or something like that. It feels like Sigourney Weaver's back, and this time she's got to fight the vestigial twin.
Oh my God, this motherfucker knows stats on the MVP of the women's basketball league, but never heard of when someone's growing a kneecap off their inner thigh?
No, Lee, this doesn't happen. Nobody is living inside of a horror movie like you are. You know what I'm saying?
Graham, Google it, man. See if there's no one in the comment section right now saying I'm full of shit.
Well, all right. I'm the one guy.
It's a real thing.
Okay. All right.
See, this is when next week Graham finds out that's what those teeth were on his shoulder.
All this time, I just thought a guy's dentures hit me when I was surfing, and here it is. I have a twin in my shoulder. I saw some old surfer like, I bit my shoulder and it fell out. So yeah, it's my birthday, but we should make this announcement, Lee.
Yeah.
October 12th, London, Government Secrets Live podcast that we're going to be doing. And Lee wants us to also let you know that there will be stand-up there too. Lee.
Why is that bugging you? I thought you enjoyed stand-up.
I do enjoy stand-up, but
you're like annoyed. You're annoyed that we might mention that there's stand-up.
Well, I don't know that it needs to be put in the title. And maybe this is a conversation for outside.
If anyone does more conversations that should be had off air, it's us. People are more likely to come to a show that's stand-up plus podcast than just podcasts.
But it's like
you don't want to sell tickets. That's your thing.
No, I want to sell, but it's like people, you should tell them it's a live podcast because that's what the bulk of the show is.
Trick them. I didn't say podcast ambush.
But it's like, so I've done 1 million live Jimmy Dore shows and he just says Jimmy Dore show live. He doesn't say Jimmy Dore show and stand up, even though he has people do stand up in front of every one of his, like I've done it. Ron's done it. Him and Steph do.
Yeah, but that's because I've done it too. No, I've done it. I did it with you once. That's because his thing is the Jimmy Dore show live. Yeah, they have an opener, but the opener is not him. Like you and I would be doing. The plan was to do a significant amount of stand-up. All right, now this definitely should be had off air. All right, but anyway. And it's also funny because, like, I am completely rusty, whereas you have some fucking killer hour you've been working on, so you're going to knock it out the park. Meanwhile, I'm going to be like, yeah, and I'm not going to have anything. And so you're the one that doesn't want to talk about it. It's weird. It's weird.
All right, we'll talk about it after the thing. We'll put it in the title. We'll talk about it after the thing. Because I'm guessing fans listening to the show will be like, oh, cool, we get to see some stand-up. But what they really want to do is hear us talk about the CIA and shit like that.
We can poll them in the comment section. Who would like to see both or who would only like to see the podcast? I'm not saying we don't.
Here's the thing. I'm not saying we don't do stand-up. I'm just saying not in the title. You'd put it in the description of the show. So Government Secrets Live podcast, a night of stand-up comedy and the podcast. But if you want to put it in the title because you think it'll help sell more tickets, I'm all right with that.
I just thought it would help sell tickets.
All right. We'll still talk afterwards and debate this because
we put stand-up, podcast, and naked women.
That's not
the title.
We're not going to put girls, government secrets. That's not what we're going to say. Everybody in the chat is putting both. I'm not saying. All right, now this is like a thing. The fucking thing now. This is like. Oh, I'm gonna hear this ought to get the chat going. I think we should mandate that we only do one. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Now, boy, that's the first time he's gone to mandate to actually change the subject.
Oh. All right. All right. It's a thing. Now it's a thing. There you go. They're all laughing. All right. Add nude, naked CIA truth. Graham and Lee, the full Monty. All right, that's what they're saying.
Monty.
Yeah, we got you, Fernalicious. All right.
Let's do a show.
All right, so I think we should start with yours because it's more timely in terms of
okay.
Since America is hellbent on speaking of Brittany Griner and provoking countries. Hey, did anything happen in Taiwan recently? Did we just provoke China to shoot missiles?
Did we send a dementia patient over to try and stoke World War III?
Yeah, it's great. I don't think we're on if you're a superpower, you want to be on the brink of World War III with two different superpowers, not just one. Like, you know what I mean? You want to hedge your bets that there's at least one World War III is going to pop off. So it's smart.
Well, what I think people don't understand, and I don't know how much of Pelosi's trip was done. I mean, I know the right wing was cheering her on and everything. Pompeo said he'd go with her, everything. But I don't know how much of it was done by the state in general or how much of it was like her. But it doesn't really matter. What a lot of people aren't talking about is because this is both the proxy war in Ukraine and what's going on with Taiwan is because the U.S. sees that the great splitting of the global economies is happening right now in real time.
Right.
China, Russia, and a bunch of other states are slowly, inevitably splitting away from the petrodollar, which will crush America's power. So America's trying to do fucking everything to make sure that doesn't happen. And the only way they can do that, in their minds, is to provoke these wars that then force other countries into being feudal states under us, as it did with Germany, France, particularly Britain. It forced them all to get lockstep behind the United States with the proxy war in Ukraine. Because Germany and France particularly were two big economies that were uniting with Russia to some degree. It's still more united with the United States, but they're next to Russia. And so, yeah, so we're just trying to provoke wars all over the fucking place to try and stop the great splitting.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I think that's like, this is America's last grasp. It knows it's losing power. I mean, it knows China's economy is actually bigger than ours now, and it's watching China. I mean, all of this stuff, all of the little things that have been happening the last couple of years. So they moved from the petrodollar, China did the petro yuan. You had all these Central Asian countries, China, Russia, Pakistan, decided they used to, when they would buy and sell, physical goods, they would use the dollar. They stopped doing that. Now they're just going to use local currencies for that stuff, which was already huge. You've got, India and Pakistan actually in agreement that they're like, nah, we're okay with, we're gonna, and you're seeing
then we soft cooed Pakistan. So I think they're getting back behind us. But.
Yeah, we did soft coup Pakistan. So, but they're like, Russia and China are like, hey, India, why don't you want to join us? And then it's like, oh, there's half of the world and there's the entire global economy, like 60 to 70% of the world's economy is in those three countries now when you do that. And so America's it is so losing. America's losing and it knows it, and it doesn't know how to do anything other than double down on its muscle. It's just like a mob boss that's losing power, and he's like, go out and knock more guys around. That's right. All it's doing. It's just
that's a good analogy. No mob boss has ever realized that his power is slipping and gone, I guess I'll just have to work with these other folks.
No, yeah, he's never done that. I mean,
become friendly with them.
I just there's only one and I think China is smart enough to see the writing on the wall that fossil fuel is bad and it's damaging us, and the whole planet is suffering from climate collapse. And China's already been making all of this green energy, and they have way more, they have high speed rail and all this stuff, and they're just ready to do it. And America literally is this last psycho bully on the block that's like, no, oil, baby, oil till we die. I mean, and all of these countries realize we've got to do something about this, except America.
We've got to the whole world has to get off petroleum, and America's power comes from the petrodollar. It's in the name. It's in the fucking name.
And the United States military, it's something George Carlin said. I go, we're just an oil company with an army. I mean, that's what it is. And so the military is dependent. Its whole funding comes from going around and protecting our oil interests and invading countries that don't want to play ball. And that's all we're doing. And we're just we're going to take the whole world with us. I mean, literally Ron Placone and I we just did a little tour of shows, Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver. And it was really cool. And fans of this show came out and they said, oh man, I love Government Secrets, which is so cool to meet fans in person. And we'll meet them at the show in London, regardless of what the title says. But we drove, I mean, it was 95 degrees in Portland, Oregon. I spent a summer there. My mom lived there after I graduated high school. So I spent a summer there in college. I've never seen Portland, that part of the world, ever above 85 degrees, ever. I mean, like once in a blue moon, there'd be some crazy. Now, this is several summers in a row. It's been 95, 100 degrees. And we drove, which again, it's a beautiful part of North America. And it's blue sky and the green trees and everything, but it was bone dry too. I'm like, this is a tinderbox, man. Like somebody just one bottle rocket goes astray and it's going to go up in smoke. California's already got fires that are killing people and damaging stuff. And it's just like, there's drought. And then in each city was insane homelessness. I mean, just worse than you've ever seen. And it's because we've been backing this petrodollar war machine. We don't put money into our own citizenry. We don't do anything about climate change. And then we're just sending, punch drunk Pelosi, who husband just he just shorted stocks to make a profit off of some bill whatever scam they're running now.
Yeah.
And we're provoking a war with China. And literally we went to Canada. So I was like, well, Canada will be a little better. Our show was on Hastings Street in downtown Vancouver. And Vancouver's a beautiful city. There was tents. I mean, some blocks of tents. I kicked a meth pipe on the street walking back to our car after the show. Like, Canada's just America light, but it's just, my niece didn't want to come to downtown Portland because she's like, it's not safe and they might steal my catalytic converter. She almost didn't come to the show. And I was like, well, I'll meet you. And, I walked her to her car and everything, but like, no one ever said that before. No one said, I've been going to Portland since I was 18. No one's ever said, oh, it's not safe downtown. Nobody said that until now.
Yeah. It's funny because if you see like Fox News or something, they're like, look at San Francisco, because they're left wing. No, what it is all of America is collapsing, and the right wing cities arrest or beat the shit out of their homeless to keep them away from like downtown, so that they don't have the visual of just how fucked it is. That's the only difference, is that in Portland, there's probably far fewer arrests of people for being homeless than in some of these other cities. And so you visually see it, but they're still there in the red cities though.
Yeah, I was in Texas in March to see, I was in San Antonio to watch basketball. And then I was in Arizona to watch spring training. There's there's tent cities. They're still there. I don't know what it's just a hilarious part of this stupid duopoly propaganda that we're fed, that the red states or the blue states or the this or that. No, capitalism is failing globally. And
it's succeeding at what it always was going to do,
which is
amass all of the wealth at the top and destroy the environment.
Yeah, and they're just going to fly out of here with Bezos's cock rocket.
So the show's almost over, but I thought maybe we'd start a topic.
We haven't even gotten into one segment yet. This is why, Lee, I don't know that we should be doing stand-up in London. I'm kidding. We're going to do stand-up in London. I'm just being an asshole.
This might be a one subject show. I don't know.
We're just going to talk about the petrodollar and London. That's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. On this episode, Lee and Graham debate about the title of their upcoming stand-up show in London. Wait, no, podcast show in London.
See?
So, segment number one, possibly segment number only.
The episode 93, the super ep.
I don't have time for a super ep.
All right.
So speaking of Taiwan, are people familiar that we almost had a fun for the whole family nuclear war over Taiwan back in good old 1958, when Leave It to Beaver was on the air?
Yeah, we were in Korea.
We were in Korea. Everybody was enjoying everybody in the United States, not in Korea, but everybody in the United States was enjoying that nice little middle-class lifestyle. Dad's able to fund the whole family with one 9-to-5 job. Black people, it still fucking sucks, but white guys having a blast And in Korea, we murdered a third of their population. But that's a side note. But anyway, this week or last week, actually, this is a few weeks ago, but recently, a previously censored account of the 1958 Taiwan Strait crisis that was sponsored by our Pentagon was published in full by the leaker of the Pentagon Papers, Daniel Ellsberg. By the way, this is coming to you from the gray zone. So Ellsberg, as most people know, one of the most famed leakers in U.S. history, revealed the Pentagon Papers, brought about, helped to bring about Watergate, helped bring about the downfall of Nixon, and revealed how fucked Vietnam was. But so after holding the still classified version of the account in his possession for 50 years, Ellsberg said he decided to release it because of the growing threat of U.S. war with China over Taiwan and the danger that such a conflict could escalate into a nuclear exchange. So at that time, 1958, Chiang Kai-shek's nationalist, and forgive me for mispronouncing things, Kuomintang, I think, regime, and the Joint Chiefs were allies in wanting to embroil the United States in a war with China. Specifically the Joint Chiefs, not the rest of the U.S. government, at least for that time. Deputy Secretary of State Christian Herter feared that the nationalist regime in Taiwan was determined to drag the U.S. into conflict, according to the Pentagon-sponsored account. The reason, according to the author of the account, Morton Halperin, was that involving the U.S. in a war with the Chinese communists was, quote, clearly their only hope for a return to the mainland. So we've heard this before in places like Syria, where the rebels that we're supporting, so-called rebels that we're supporting, are hoping to entice the U.S. full military power into their conflict.
And it's like it's so funny. It's like it's that quote from Malcolm X, where he was saying how easy it is to get people to believe just using the media. China and Russia were our allies in World War II, and then less than 10 years after the end of World War II, they're just these big evil enemies that we want to start World War III with. It's just insane.
Yeah. Although we always, as we covered on this show, we were almost, the U.S. government was almost more afraid of the Bolsheviks than the Nazis. Like, even as World War II is coming to an end, we're sending, World War I, Wilson's sending troops to Russia to possibly, he was pressured into it to possibly stop the Bolshevik Revolution. But anyway, we've always, and we dropped the nukes, dropped the nuclear bombs, largely just to show a force against Russia.
Yeah.
So, Quemoy and Matsu, the two main offshore islands occupied by nationalist troops, were less than 5 miles from the mainland of China, and had been used by Chiang Kai-shek's forces as bases to mount unsuccessful commando raids inside the mainland. And Chiang, who was still committed to reconquering the mainland China with the ostensible support of the United States, had stationed a third of his 350,000-man army on those two islands. In May 1958, the Joint Chiefs adopted a new plan, ostensibly for the defense of the offshore islands. In fact, the plan provided a basis for attacking China with atomic weapons. And this is in a time when we believe China either has atomic weapons or could get them rather easily. So this was not us thinking, oh, sure, we can just nuke China and not fear reprisals. So in phase one, which they called patrol and reconnaissance, was already underway. Phase two, which would have been triggered by a Chinese attack on the offshore islands, would involve U.S. air forces wiping out the attacking forces. So then you'd have a hot war between U.S. and China, but without nuclear weapons. But the new plan envisioned a possible third phase in which the Strategic Air Command and forces under the command of the U.S. Pacific Command would carry out strategic attacks with 10 to 15 kiloton tactical nuclear weapons to destroy the war-making capability, quote unquote, of China. According to the account, authored by Halpern, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Air Force General Nathan Twining, told State Department officials in an August meeting that the third phase would require nuclear strikes on Chinese bases as far north as Shanghai. The Joint Chiefs played down the threat to civilian casualties for such tactical, quote unquote, tactical atomic weapons, emphasizing that an airburst of tactical atomic explosions would generate little radioactive fallout. But the account indicates that they provided no concrete information on expected civilian casualties.
This is why these guys are absolute sociopaths. I mean, literally, they go, they use the term acceptable losses. And they literally, you know, they pitch that to the president, and there'll be minimal nuclear fallout. Just like no long-term, we'll figure that out later. I mean, just insane. And like, and you know, and they literally would in these reports, I almost guarantee you, because we've talked about them before, they'll be like, and if they retaliate, well, they might hit a couple of population centers and we'll probably have to lose about 30 or 40 million people, but we can handle that. So you're just writing off 30 or 40 million Americans in this scenario, and on top of the innocent Chinese people that you're going to wipe out. So it's just like, these guys are nuts. They're horrible. They're lunatics. They're just I don't know what else to, and that's how they get to power, is because
that's how you rise up the ranks in an organization like the Pentagon.
Yeah.
If at any point you were like, listen, we really need to spend a lot more time caring about civilian casualties, I'm not saying no one's ever said that in the Pentagon, but that's not getting you up the ladder.
No. You're going to stay a captain. You know what I mean? And they're just going to be like, oh, cool. Yeah. You want to spend more money on the homeless? Absolutely. You're going to be in charge of the Jeeps up in some base, you know, outside of Bismarck, North Dakota. And you're going to enjoy that for the rest of your life.
And this doesn't mean that the Pentagon doesn't have pretend little units and offices and things to study civilian casualties. And they love all that theater to make it look like they care. And, you know, my father, who was a psychoanalyst in Vietnam, he came back from Vietnam. He was stationed in D.C., Walter Reed Military Hospital, and where I was born. And he was basically put in a room to like analyze the psychology of what went on with the troops in Vietnam and how it all got so bad. And, you know, how you had such a terrible situation where troops were literally killing their own commanders just to like not go into battle that day. And so he was researching it and looking into it. And it took him like, you know, several years of work there for him to realize that they didn't actually want the report. They wanted to pretend like they were doing it. And then when he gives it to them, they're like, yes, I'm filing this away in my imaginary file folder under will not check this again.
This will go right in the file. Oh, it was a shredder. Dang it. Well, we'll tape those together later and we'll get.
We actually file this away in it's about a 1/2-inch pieces that through this machine.
That's basically, we're not shredding it. That's how it's encrypted.
Yeah, it's encrypting it.
It's a security measure.
So they act like the civilian casualties won't be that bad, but of course that was utter horseshit. And the Joint Chiefs did not acknowledge that the bombs they planned to detonate with air bursts would have had the same potential lethality as the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Nor would they concede that the targets of such bombings were located in the immediate vicinity of Chinese cities that were roughly the same population as Hiroshima. Like the Hiroshima bomb, the nuclear explosions would have been triggered in the air. So that also was done in Hiroshima, triggered in the air, because the blast damage is the greatest. It damages nearly everything within a radius of 3 miles from the blast, killing much of the population. The Joint Chiefs also assumed that China would respond to the U.S. use of atomic weapons by retaliating with atomic weapons. Certain, this is a quote from the report, almost certainly would involve nuclear retaliation against Taiwan and possibly against Okinawa. So I guess their point was, at that time, China didn't have an easy way to get the nukes to the U.S. mainland, so they just have to settle for nuking the population in Taiwan, which our Joint Chiefs were like, sure, go ahead.
Cool. Yeah. All right. As long as it doesn't come in my front door, that's fine. Just nuke something else. Yeah, that makes total sense. That's cool. That's the heartfelt compassion of the Pentagon that we've known to grow. We've grown to love.
Yeah. They care a lot. Despite the likelihood that it would lead to nuclear retaliation by China, Chairman Twining expressed no hesitation about the plan, asserting that in order to defend the offshore islands, the consequences had to be accepted. They love to talk in those fucking euphemisms that, listen, we just got to accept the collateral damage. There's going to be some secondary targeting of flesh covered skeletons.
Yeah. There might be some blowback, but it's totally, you mean humans like just blown away? That is what you mean, you general psycho?
You can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. And by breaking eggs, I mean killing roughly 10 to 20 million people.
You can't make an omelet without nuking some cities. So that's why we're going to have eggs today.
But this is perhaps, in a way, this is burying the lead, because this is perhaps one of the most horrifying parts. The Joint Chiefs plan kind of accidentally revealed, the military chiefs' hope of removing the power of decision over nuclear war from the hands of the president. It said the plan would be put into operation when, quote, dictated by appropriate U.S. authority, implying that it would not necessarily be decided by the president. In his own memoirs, Eisenhower recalled with some bitterness how during the keep in mind, Eisenhower's a former general. During the 1958 crisis, he was, quote, continuously pressured, almost hounded by Chiang Kai-shek on one side and by our own military on the other, requesting delegation of authority for immediate action on Formosa, Taiwan, or the offshore islands. He did not refer, however, to the efforts by the Joint Chiefs to gain advance authorization for the use of nuclear weapons on the Chinese mainland. I mean, they were basically trying to slip in the fact that they could drop the nukes without the president.
This explains so much right now. It explains his farewell speech about warning about the military-industrial complex, for sure. And this also explains Kennedy, as we covered, like saying all this stuff about the CIA and getting us out of Vietnam. And I wouldn't be surprised. I'm sure him and Eisenhower had a conversation. You know, like when they change over the power and the new president comes in and the old president shows him around. And then I'm sure Eisenhower pulled him inside and said, yo, man, these guys are nuts. Like, watch out. These guys, they literally are trying to take away the power of the president, which is an elected official. Theoretically, the American people give this, and then there's but they don't even want that. It's just like, wow. It explains why Eisenhower gave that speech. It explains why they killed Kennedy, because Kennedy was like, oh, no, I'm not, you guys aren't going to get this power anymore. I mean, I'm going to make sure you guys are trying to take too much power, and I'm not going to let it happen. So they killed him.
And he outwardly said he was going to break up the CIA.
Yes, he said it. I'm going to break it up into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the wind.
And he went against the military chiefs on multiple occasions.
Yes.
The Bay of Pigs, where they thought they were going to basically trick him into having to invade, and he refused to invade. The Operation Northwoods. Yeah.
I mean, this is literally the way they pressured Eisenhower with Taiwan here is the same way they were pressuring Kennedy on Bay of Pigs and Vietnam and everything else. Like, they wanted him to just escalate, and that's what they wanted.
But the difference is nowadays we have Joe Biden, who is an intellectual lodestar that, like, you cannot pressure that man. He just has too strong a grasp of the world and geopolitics, and you just can't get that guy to do what you want, because he's just too fucking brilliant.
He is. I mean, you know, I think about like the three greatest presidents we've had, FDR and his famous speech, you know, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. JFK, who said we choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it's difficult. And then Joe Biden, who yesterday tweeted out, hey, there's a lot of gas stations have gas under $4 now. That was his big speech. Like, wow.
Or when he said you can sum up all of America with one word.
What was this next tweet going to just be, guys, and all these gas stations with cheap gas use coupon code corn pop for a BOGO hot dog. Like, and then Pelosi just look who's in charge. Just, and before that we had Trump.
Trump. If people like to act like the cognitive decline is just Biden and Pelosi. You could put together a montage of Biden, Pelosi, and Trump with the most amazing fucking word salads
that make no sense. Like, you can literally watch them. This is an older person with cognitive decline, and no one wants to. And some people will go, yeah, Graham, but you were a big Bernie supporter and he's old. I said, yeah, he's old and he never showed cognitive decline. And had he become president and showing cognitive decline, I would be saying the same thing. The person that's in charge of launch codes might need to know what day of the week it is. I don't know. Maybe that's me being a purist.
Or what room he's in. So it continues. The Joint Chiefs weren't finished, though, trying to basically wrest control of nuclear attacks from the president. In a paper presented to Eisenhower on September 6th, the chiefs proposed that they be authorized to, quote, oppose any major attack on Taiwan and attack mainland bases with all SINPAC force that can be brought to bear. Which, you know, if you sign over like the right to use all force you can if something happens, that would seem to say that they could launch an atomic attack without the president. They asked for the authority to respond to a, quote, major landing attack on offshore islands by, quote, use of atomic weapons and U.S. air attack in support of the Chinese Nationalist Air Force as necessary, only as approved by the president. So Eisenhower got that added in there, had to put the qualifiers in. So here's the last bit. It turned out that the Chinese never intended full-scale war over the offshore islands. Instead, they sought to mount a blockade of resupply to the islands through artillery barrages. And when the U.S. military provided armed escorts for the ships carrying out the resupply, which again it's basically like a no-fly zone. It's like setting the stage for nuclear fucking Armageddon. But when the U.S. military did that, they were careful to avoid hitting American ships. It was the eagerness of the Joint Chiefs for a nuclear war against China rather than the policy of communist China that presented the most serious threat to American security and really life on Earth. But
it's and again,
can you share that image, by the way?
Sure. This is like, and China, again, just recently they showed restraint because China's not like they're not crazy. You can criticize their government in a bunch of different ways, but you can't say they don't just go provoking this kind of shit. It's unreal. Like it's insane. It's insane, man. It's literally like, yeah, I mean, it's amazing that like what they did in 1958. And again, we read so many of these stories that happened back in the 40s or 50s or whatever. And then today it's worse. Like, it's not like, oh, that was back and things aren't that nutty anymore. Now everything's settled down and we've got a real democracy. It's like, no, it's worse. It's happening. Literally, this Pelosi thing is in real time. And I can guarantee you there's a bunch of nutbags right now having conversations with Biden or, you know, whatever pudding cup he's having sit in his place at these meetings. And they're saying the same shit. Acceptable loss is if we nuke this, we can, you know, we might take a hit on the East Coast, but we'll be fine. You know, like, and they might bomb San Francisco, but, you know, we'll be all right. You know, like, they're having these conversations right now today. And there's nobody of any integrity like JFK and Eisenhower. Say what you say. He was a war general in World War II, but he had at least integrity. He was like probably believed in America, and now it's a joke. It's insane. Like, So,
yeah, I mean, in many ways, it speaks to the fact that the Pentagon and the deep state really do run things.
yeah.
The one thing that's kind of definitely in the president's hands is the dropping of a nuclear bomb, but the presidency used to be something they had to worry about, that the democracy wasn't captured enough, and that you could end up with a JFK in there who tries to break up the CIA, or you could end up with a president in there that wasn't just full on militaristic war hawk. But nowadays, that's not a risk. Like, there's never a time that they're worried that the presidency is going to be actually someone that cares about humanity.
No, it's literally just like they're just disputing. It's not like, this guy's going to get in charge and he's going to get rid of the deep state or the war machine or anything like that. There's never the threat. It's just like, well, we wanted to have more money, whatever. It's just this guy might make more money or less money for this company or this industry, but they'll all do what they're told. Like Trump did what he was told. He kept the war machine going. They all do what they're told. So,
yeah.
All right, we got time to crank mine in.
We could try.
All right, I just put the link to the London show in the chat, everybody. So, as today's my birthday and I am of Irish descent, I wanted to talk about Project Shamrock. So this is. It was the sister project of to Project Minaret, an espionage exercise that was started in August 1945. So I kind of wanted to do like celebrate August. So Project Minaret involved the accumulation of all telegraphic data that entered or exited the United States. So this is again before the internet. So this is when everything was through telegraph. And the
government only started surveilling us in the 2000s, correct?
Sure, absolutely. Like prior to that, it was a very free-form democracy. The Armed Forces Security Agency, AFSA, which basically was the precursor to the NSA, were given direct access to daily microfilm copies of all incoming, outgoing, and transiting telegrams via Western Union and its associate RCA and ITT. NSA did the operational inception, and if there was any information that would be of interest to other agencies, they just passed them around. So they gave it to the FBI, the CIA, the Secret Service, the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, which I think has probably been changed to the ATF, the Department of Defense. And this is my favorite. This is a very WikiLeaks moment. One sentence that just says, no court authorized the operation and there were no warrants. They just moving on. Then they just go right to the next paragraph.
Wait, I think you said very WikiLeaks. You mean very Wikipedia.
Sorry, very Wikipedia. Sorry. WikiLeaks would not do this. This is a Wikipedia thing. My apologies.
Very Wikipedia of them. Good old liberal history of the United States Wikipedia to just have one little sentence like, no court ever said this was okay.
Yeah, this was completely illegal and it was surveyed. So we've been surveying, the American citizens have been being surveyed since 1945. Just so you know.
Yeah, the surveillance did not begin last week.
No. The precursor to the project occurred in 1940. In January 1940, the Army Adjutant General sent a letter to the president of RCA, David Sarnoff, asking if a Lieutenant Earl F. Cook might be assigned to the company. Cook photographed all international commercial cablegrams. The clandestine arrangement, almost certainly illegal, set a precedent.
Almost,
kind of like sort of armed robbery.
When you said you need a warrant, did you mean like on every person, or like if we get a warrant on one guy, can we just watch everybody? Or because that's a lot of paperwork.
And tell me your definition of warrant, like a warrant, like a judge, or just like I can kind of write some stuff down and we both kind of have a handshake deal on it. Can we do that
like,
one?
like a wink and a nod warrant, you know, like, hey, like
Just we both know kind of warrant without,
yeah.
we don't have to make it a formal thing. You know what I mean? It's like you're in an exclusive relationship. You don't have to get married and do all that. You can just have a, so actually it says official wartime censorship began in December 1940 when all cables were turned over to the government for inspection. The collection program just ran on ever since its beginning in World War II without a great deal of attention from anybody. Oh, that's weird. Nobody.
Yeah, they're just surveilling everyone and secretly, and they're like, Americans don't seem to care that much. It's like, because they didn't fucking know.
Yeah, they didn't. It's not that big of a deal. If America wasn't up in arms about it, then I guess it's not that big of a deal. Three major cable companies provided copies of all, of course, corporate America, so willing to just bend over backwards for the intelligence community. And I'm glad that's ended. I'm glad Google isn't doing that or anybody. Those guys are all, they're all, Facebook doesn't do it because it's Zuckerberg. He wears hoodies and skateboard shoes. So he's cool, right? I mean, they wouldn't.
Well, and that's the thing. If these companies aren't aligned with the corporate state from the beginning, from day one, like Google, some of the seed money for Google came from CIA's venture capital arm. But if they're not aligned from day one, then if they start to allow too much free flow of information or things our U.S. government doesn't want, then all the U.S. government has to do is go, we've been looking into whether you should be broken up. And then, and then the company's like, oh, we just remembered we're going to do whatever the fuck you want.
Here you go. Here's everything. What do you guys want? It's just like, you guys are violating some antitrust laws, or we have all your servers. And they're like, here are your servers, guys. You have fun and do what you'd like. And they will always, corporate America will buckle with zero resistance to the intelligence community when they come knocking. And probably sometimes, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these tech assholes, these billionaires were like, hey, I bet you we could get some more money if we go make a deal with the CIA. I bet, you know what I mean? Like there's another revenue stream. And I'm just saying, like, in the 50s, the new Shamrock tapped the links of 60 to 70 foreign embassies. According to Ethan Theoharis, the post-World War II continuation of Project Shamrock brought hesitation from the telegraph companies who were concerned about the legality. Their actions and employees would reveal that the company's government cooperation to the public. Their fears were assuaged. Way to stand tough.
Fears of the legality were assuaged.
Yes. After a promise from Attorney General Tom Clark that the U.S. government would not prosecute the companies for participating in Project Shamrock. So this is what they're, again, just the integrity of corporate America. They're just worried that we're going to get, like us and our employees, we could get busted and go to jail. Not, hey, this is morally wrong and it goes against the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and everything America claims to stand for. That wasn't their problem. It's just, yo, man, I don't want to get jammed up on this one. So,
right.
The Attorney General, the highest cop in the land, goes, you're good. Don't worry about it, bro. After Congress approved a bill section that made it illegal. So this is, how are they able to do this? Well, we just pass a law to make it possible. Congress approved a bill section that made it illegal for unauthorized individuals to reveal information related to code breaking, which was part of Shamrock's operation. So
I always love when Congress kicks into high gear and is like, oh, that law we were breaking, not illegal anymore.
Yeah. And also, this is a little, this law is illegal for unauthorized individuals to reveal information related to code breaking. So that's also a law saying, hey, employee that's working for, Western Union that thinks this is wrong and is thinking about being a whistleblower, we're going to put you in jail for the rest of your life. That's what that is. So these laws have been on the books since the 50s, protecting the intelligence community and complicit corporations and demonizing whistleblowers, making it illegal to be a whistleblower. So it's illegal for Americans to call out when something wrong is being done by their government. It's illegal.
Yep. And, Ellsberg is a very rare case that he was able to have a court free him. But in general,
it's not going to happen to Assange. He won't be freed. I mean, there's no way.
Nope. And he's not even a whistleblower. He just created a fucking journalism site. Yes.
At the height of Project Shamrock, 150,000 messages were printed and analyzed by the NSA personnel in a month. In May 1975, congressional critics began to investigate and expose the program. As a result, NSA Director Lou Allen terminated it, sure he did, on his own authority rather than that of other intelligence agencies. According to Budiansky, the 1977 Department of Justice review concluded wiretap laws were violated, but
nobody did anything wrong.
But we trust people. This is quote, if the intelligence agencies possessed too much discretionary authority with too little accountability, that would seem to be a 35-year failing of presidents and Congress rather than the agencies or their personnel. So the agencies so at the end of the day, Congress put a bill that said, we're going to blame past presidents and Congress rather than these evil intelligence agencies.
Right.
So the testimony of both the representatives from the cable companies and Director Allen at the hearings prompted Senate Intelligence Committee Chairman Senator Frank Church to conclude that Project Shamrock was probably the largest government interception program affecting Americans ever undertaking. And it created the 1978 Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which limited the powers of the NSA and put in place a process of warrants and judicial review. Another internal safeguard was United States Signals Intelligence Directive 18, an internal NSA and intelligence community set of procedures originally issued in 1980.
But all of that was undone by the Patriot Act.
Yes.
And nowadays the FISA court approves, it's something like 99.8% of all warrant requests.
Yes.
So for plenty of the surveillance, they don't even go there for a warrant. And then when they do go there for a warrant, the FISA court just says, oh, absolutely.
So this is classic. And this is classic, like Wikipedia saying, see, they passed the thing. The FISA court stops it, they don't, all done, move on to the next story. Rather than go, basically the Patriot Act that Bush and them and voted on and by people like Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden basically said, we're going to just create this. The FISA court is basically just this rubber stamp factory for warrants. And they just like, boom, 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 boom. Yeah. It's like Oprah, like you get a warrant and you get a warrant and you get a warrant.
And then if they break the law and they get caught later, they can go backwards and the FISA court will be like, you had a warrant.
Yeah. Oh, whoops. We put it on the wrong file. Here's one.
Yeah.
Stamp. There you go. Backdated.
We filed it under one of those 1-inch files. That's
So that, ladies and gentlemen, is Project Shamrock, the second segment on Government Secrets, episode 93.
And you can show the image that we forgot to show.
Here is the image.
And happy birthday, Graham.
Whoops, where is it? Add to stream. There we go. There it is.
That's exactly the guy I would have pictured in charge of connecting those cables.
Yeah, he looks like somebody from Blade Runner or something like that. Like it's Lee Camp, where can people follow and watch and enjoy all of your fine stuff? You got some new shows happening, right?
I have a new show, man. It's called The Most Censored News with Bill Maher. No, I'm kidding. It's called The Most Censored News with Lee Camp. And it is, you can get it at Mint Press, the news site, but you can also get it at youtube.com/behind the headlines, which is their video project. So go to youtube.com/behind the headlines and hit subscribe. There's 2 episodes out so far. First one's on BlackRock. Second one's on how the massive, company that was touted for making so many masks, 3M, is now being sued for intentionally harming hundreds of thousands of U.S. troops with earplugs that they knew didn't work because they found out in 2000 they don't work, but they covered up the data, and now 260,000 U.S. service members have hearing loss and permanent tinnitus and all this shit. And 3M has a way to get out of this because that's what companies do, right? They could just get away from the harm they've caused. They are spinning off their healthcare unit. I mean, their earbud unit or whatever, and so that they can claim bankruptcy for that unit and not have to pay.
Man, I went over there. I went to Iraq and Afghanistan. I went to Iraq 3 times, Afghanistan 3 times, and Kuwait. And, those 3M, there were just boxes everywhere of those 3M earplugs.
Really?
And, oh yeah, I wore them all the time. I mean, I would, because we'd fly on helicopters and you definitely want to have them in. And then I'd wear them to sleep because there was always kind of crazy shit happening in these war zones. So I needed them to sleep. So, and I would just wear them for like 2 weeks at a time but I can't imagine someone who is wearing them
around munitions and bombs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, I had them in on the couple helicopter rides where we came under fire, where this guy started unloading a 60 cal machine gun when I was in Afghanistan with Shematosh. Like I had him in then.
You were on the helicopter. Someone started shooting at it from the ground.
Yeah, so we had just done a show the night before in Jalalabad, which is about 25 miles from the Pakistan border, mainly Marines, myself and Shematosh. And so we were each sitting on either door, and we were flying doors open. So you have like a 4 or 5 point harness, and we're flying doors open, and there's a gunner out each window. And the gunner was like basically me to this camp, like maybe 3 or 4 feet away. And all of a sudden he just starts shooting people. We bank high up. I'm literally like hanging over and he's like out of his seat gunning, and there's just spent shells going everywhere. Like one hit me in the head, just like ding, 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 ding. It's nuts. And then we banked up the other side. And then Shema saw, because she was on the left side of the aircraft, it was a Black Hawk. She saw a local guy on the ground with an RPG on his shoulder, and that's who they were lighting up. And then we released countermeasures. So I'm looking out the window and I see these flares. And at the time I didn't know what they were until I got back. And a buddy of mine that was was a Ranger said, "Oh yeah, those are countermeasures." I said, "What's that?" He goes, "So that's when the rocket is going up to the helicopter and it senses it releases countermeasures. So the rocket chases the flares." Right. And I was like, "Oh, cool." So I have 2 birthdays. April 27, 2006 is the day I almost got blown out of the sky. But yeah, I was wearing the 3M. So yeah, I went to Dachau when I was 6, and then I've been to war zones, and it's been a fun ride. I've had a nice life.
God. And you were like, it's fucking worth it to get these jokes to Jalalabad. These jokes have to be heard.
Well, yeah,
dude. If I were there, I'd just be like, oh man, if I get killed here, they're not even gonna report on it.
No, they would have reported on it, and they would have used it as a promotional thing,
propaganda tool.
Yeah, that's what they would have done. But yeah, it's and one of the things they said, one of the reasons I kept going was because they said that the suicide rate would drop whenever a comedy show came through.
Wow.
A base. So, yeah. And we have 20 to 22 vets a day that commit suicide. So,
yeah.
And I just flew on a plane coming back from these shows with Ron and the guy, we started talking, and he was a vet, and he's had 6 friends of his that served have taken their own lives. So it's a real cause. So if you go to my Facebook page to celebrate my birthday, there's a donation to help with veterans for that. So.
And we really do have to wrap up, but yeah, and this all comes back around to like our government doesn't give a shit about these people, and neither do the companies making the gear like these earplugs, and they're going to do everything they can to not pay out to the victims.
Yeah. They don't give a shit. Yeah. They don't give a shit at all about any of us, and especially if you serve this country, they don't care about you at all. They just don't. It's insane. But yeah. Go to GrahamElwood.com. I'm shooting my comedy special in Chicago, October 26th. And then I will be putting the link up for our October 12th show today, but it's also in the chat. So check that out. And then we're all heading over to Patreon right now to do a bonus segment on Patreon. So go to patreon.com/government secrets, right?
Come see a bonus segment, folks. Don't miss it.
Bonus segment. This has been Government Secrets episode 93. See you at patreon.com/government secrets.
Later.
See you, dude.